Welcome to the JD Power AI and Insurance podcast, where we explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way insurance companies serve, grow, and innovate. I'm your host, Michael Vermillion, and today's guest is Liza Adams, founder and principal at GrowthPath Partners. Liza is a go-to-market strategist with over 20 years of experience leading growth for SaaS and AI-driven companies, and now she advises teams across industries on how to adopt AI responsibly and effectively. In this episode, we'll learn how top-performing companies are transforming their go-to-market strategies with AI, what insurance leaders can borrow from other sectors, and how to upskill and activate teams to make the most of this opportunity. So let's get started and dive in. Liza, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mike. It is so great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you on the podcast. So yeah, as a good starting point, why don't we just start a bit about GrowthPath Partners, what you do, who you work with, how you guide companies through their AI-powered growth journey.
Yeah, so just you've done a good job introducing me and the company. So that is what I do now. I advise companies, especially go-to-market teams, on how to adopt AI responsibly. But we actually don't start with AI. We start with how customers are in the market is changing their behaviors as a result of AI, as a result of innovation. The way people search, the way people make decisions, the way people build confidence and trust is changing. And then as a result, businesses need to do things differently. And when we do things differently, how do we do that with not just human, but also AI teammates to help us on this journey? So that is what I do now. And, my passion actually isn't AI. My passion is about elevating the strategic value of go-to-market functions. It's using business as a force for good and ensuring diverse voices at every table. AI happens to be an amplifier, so I lean in on AI to amplify my passions. So it's a means to an end rather than the end when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I love the way you're couching that. So just to kind of understand how AI is shifting go-to-market strategy across industries, and we want to kind of lean in on what insurance leaders can learn, right? So you've worked with companies across SaaS, cloud, AI, more. What are some of the biggest shifts that you're seeing in how AI is transforming go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'd like to do an outside-in view rather than from the company's view. Let's look at our customers or our markets or prospects, right? And honestly, if you look at how they're evaluating vendors, how they're evaluating business, that is shifting, starting with search. The way people search is now shifting, right? So traditional Google searches are kind of falling by the wayside to AI searches. That doesn't mean that no one's ever going to use Google anymore, because even Google has its own AI features. So for example, AI overviews or AI mode within Google. When you do a search, you will typically see an AI overview at the top. So this could also be ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. And not everybody is going to go that hard on AI, but you can see the shift because with AI, when you do a search, what it returns is a direct answer to your question, rather than serving you up blue links that you have to click on one by one to figure out the answer to your question. So as consumers, we like it when our inquiries are being answered directly. And then if we want to get more information, you click on the citation and you go to the source. So that's a very different way of thinking, right? If our customers are doing that, first and foremost, for us as businesses, we need to figure out how we show up in those AI responses, because when we don't show up, we're literally invisible. And our competitors are visible, but not us. The second thing is not just about visibility, it's also about what does the AI say about us? So we might be visible, but is it positioning us in the right way, right? Is it positioning us in the way that we want to be perceived in the market? And that's yet another piece of the puzzle that we need to solve as business leaders, regardless of what market you're in.
Okay, so Do you see anything out there that's working in other sectors that that insurance leaders could potentially learn from?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like this whole thing around AI search, some people feel fairly helpless, right? Wow, AI is just going to serve up something about me or not even going to consider me in the response. But I think there is some level of control that we can apply towards this. And where I guide many is, don't try to figure out the algorithm. Don't try to chase the algorithm. Because even if there was one, no one's going to tell us. And then secondly, I don't believe that anybody truly knows what this algorithm will be from day to day. We know that Google was serving up AI overviews 15% of the time months ago, and then now it's upwards in the 75 to 85% range, depending on what industry you're in. So if we try to change that algorithm, I think we would go crazy, right? So one of the key things that I guide most leaders is just be an authentically good business. And I know that sounds trite, but when we're honest, we're transparent, and we are helpful, with AI as an amplifier, it will amplify that we are that, right? If we have bad business practices, people talk very differently about us. They talk in ways that we don't want to be represented. That's what AI will serve up to users. So how do we, first and foremost, how do we make ourselves visible to AI? It is all about deeply understanding our customers. Figure out what these customers will ask the AI engines, right? Whether it's when they're just beginning to do their research, or they're now considering potential vendors to do business with, or they're starting to make some decisions. So what are those questions? And understand it very deeply. Once we understand those questions, then figure out what content we need to create that directly answers those questions, and use language that is aligned with how customers are using their language. Because what happens is AI is going to get the questions, and if we don't have content that answers that question, and if it's not in language that is understandable to the end user, we will not get served up, right? Make our content so highly relevant and so that directly answers the question that it would be so hard for the AI to ignore our brand and to ignore our piece of content. So that's one of the ways we show up, right? And there's no magic to that. It's like deeply understanding your customer, talking to them, figuring out what they might ask, talk to your partners, talk to your salespeople. And then we can actually use AI to figure out what those questions are. So oftentimes I like, publicly available customer reviews. They're in review sites, right? They could be in a Google recommendation, or customer review sites like G2 or Gartner Peer Insights or Capterra. Download those reviews. Those reviews are golden, right? Because they're in language that the customer actually typed in there. And then feed that into AI. That's publicly available information, nothing confidential or private about it. Upload it into AI and say, can you please infer what are the top questions that people might ask at different stages of their buying journey? And then it will tell you what those questions might be. Now, it doesn't mean that, hey, these are now my questions and I need to create content for every one of these. It is just a starting point wherein we now then validate it with our customers, with prospects, with sales, or partners, whether these are the right set of questions. So.
Yeah, that's really, I think, makes a lot of sense, and great advice and coaching. So, yeah, Liza, one of the things that we're focused on in our series on AI is the impact of AI on our people and our teams, and I think part of that is around just the term upskilling, right? So when it comes to upskilling sales and marketing and customer success teams, what are some effective approaches that you're seeing from companies that are successfully integrating AI?
Yeah, I've always said the hardest part of this transformation isn't AI. The innovation and the technology is not the hard part. The hardest part is us, the human beings, right? Because we are very complex. We have fears, we have motivations, we have passions, we have cultures, we have ingrained thinking, right? And AI is not one of those where there are best practices or instructions. We are all learning together, and we are all paving our own ways and learning from each other. And this whole notion that some are, are employing, where they give people the tools, the AI tools, and then expect people to just learn it, I think is flawed. This is one where we actually have to meet people where they are and bring them along. It is truly human change management, because we have to shift mindsets and we have to shift behavior. And we have to be super graceful and compassionate on how we do that, because people have fears, right? Like I'm working with teams where there are people who are so fearful for their job, it literally paralyzes them and they can't move. And then there are people on the other end of the spectrum who are leaning in so hard on AI. They're using 3 to 4 different models, using it for everything that they do, but they don't know how to use it responsibly. So on either side of the spectrum, there are challenges, and then there's everybody in between, right? And I think, unlike previous innovations and technologies, this is one where I believe we need to be super graceful and compassionate on how we bring people along and not judge so much. I use my husband as an example of this, his adoption of AI. So Mike Adams is a published author of young adult sci-fi novels. He hesitates to put his works into AI because he fears that it will ingest his books, and then somebody else will be able to write the next series of novels. But at the same time, he is also a right leg amputee due to childhood cancer, and he embraces AI from the perspective of robotics because he believes that it can change the way people work and live, especially those with disabilities. So even in a single individual, the acceptance and adoption of AI varies quite widely depending on the use case and depending on their beliefs and what's happening to them, not just in their professional life, but also in their personal life. So this whole notion of upskilling and reskilling has to be done with a lot of care. We can't just, layer it on top of people's already oversubscribed daily works. Like, people are so super busy, right? They're working 120 to 150% oversubscribed. And if we simply put AI learning on top of that, people will recoil. So we need to give them the space to learn, the ability to share, learn from each other. And from that, when there's shared learning, the rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah, I that's great advice and great coaching. Any tips for, and specifically, for the insurance companies that are listening, to this podcast? Any kind of words of advice for them who are kind of just in the early stages of thinking about preparing their sales and marketing teams for AI?
Yeah, so I've given a little bit in what I just previously said. However, in the shift in thinking and mindset, I think one of the key things is to inspire them with what's possible with AI, way beyond what most people typically think about it for. So, for example, people think about it as a question and answer machine. You type in a question, you get an answer. Or they think about it as something that can help you craft your emails or create a blog or summarize a long report or create an image, right? And that's about it. So it's primarily being used for content creation. I contend we need to push this way, way more than that. And we need to think about it as a thought partner, where we might have some ideas, run it by AI, and ask AI what it thinks about it. Ask AI how different people with different perspectives might view it, from a decision maker to an influencer to a ratifier, and then ultimately a user, right? Ask AI to sharpen our ideas. So thinking partner is one of my top use cases for AI. Another way to use AI is through automation. What can we automate that can actually help us with efficiency in our business? Another element is use it for research and analytics, because we can only consume so much data in our heads and analyze things, right? But AI can actually see things that we might not normally see and give us deeper insights that will help us with decision making. And then lastly, think about it for personalization, because it knows so much how can we potentially personalize the experience for our customers. So that's one element. The other element is not just thinking about AI as a tool, but thinking about it as a teammate. So when we think about it as a teammate that we can actually build, train, and then ultimately manage and guide to help us do the work, you can imagine a team where it's no longer just human beings. You now have human beings and AI teammates on an org chart. And these AI teammates are serving individual human beings. In fact, their value becomes a lot higher when these AI teammates are shared across different human beings, and they're shared across teams and perhaps even organizations. So I think this upskill and reskilling aspect of AI goes way beyond AI helping us with productivity. It's helping us with higher quality, ensuring that our output is of higher quality. And then lastly, it's helping us with innovation, because as they say, you can't reimagine the future by simply automating the past. You should actually think about AI
Right.
to reimagine work and rethink workflows.
Love that. Love that. So I want to shift gears a little bit and just talk about adoption. And so I think what we've seen is everybody is testing something, right, when it comes to AI. But I think we kind of see fewer examples of where a company has successfully scaled something that was in test and actually scaled that up to be a kind of a full scale production process or whatever. And just wondered, from your experience and what you've seen, are there any kind of key enablers that help companies move from testing to actually integrating AI into their daily go-to-market workflow? And you've mentioned some of the things like thought partners and personalization and analytics. I think those are all great examples, but how do we get those from kind of testing or pilot stage to actually scale up?
Yeah, so I generally guide leaders towards one of three approaches, and it could be a combination of these approaches. The first one is really around figuring out the jobs to be done or use cases that are most important, meaning that they're aligned to your top 3 or 4 strategic initiatives, right? Because when you have use cases aligned to those top strategic initiatives, the probability of it getting adopted and implemented successfully is a lot higher. Those strategic initiatives have, budget, goals, KPIs, resources, an owner, timelines, and oftentimes they have the eyes of maybe not just the executive team, but perhaps even the board. So when everybody's aligned to that, the probability of making it happen is a lot higher. So that's one way to, figure out where to start, right? The second way that I've seen work is figuring out the areas of biggest pain. So one of the CMOs that I worked with, her biggest pain was around translation and localization. So she literally, her team and her had to translate literally every single document that was customer facing into 8 different languages for a global audience. And it was costing them tens of thousands of dollars a month. So guess what? The first thing that they went to was a translation and localization teammate. They now have 8 teammates, 1 per language, that helps them with AI teammates, 1 per language, that helps them with that problem. So immediate impact to the business, and once others saw the impact of AI, they begin thinking about other teammates that they can build to solve some of the other bigger problems. So it became inspiration, right? The third area that I've seen work is leaning into your trailblazers. Trailblazers are those people who are so intensely curious, right? They have a growth mindset. They're beginning to work with AI very differently. They're starting to reimagine work. Put the spotlight on them and allow them to shine and give them the oxygen to really help others, inspire others. Because when people see their peers succeeding, that's like clear inspiration for others to do much better and much greater work. So, those are just the three areas, and sometimes it's a combination of those three, and maybe there are some other ideas out there as well.
Yeah, love those. If there's a kind of a burning business imperative where the ROI is immediate, it's just ends up becoming a no-brainer, right? So,
Yeah.
Just from what you've seen, is there any particular examples of where organizations tend to get stuck when it comes to adopting AI and scaling up AI? And I know from recent conversations I've had, there's some concern about our data isn't AI ready, and so we need to wait and pause and get our data to be AI ready before we can move forward. But any other examples?
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's so insightful, right? And this is one where I urge people that when it doesn't work or you feel like you're not ready, break down the problem into bite-sized chunk pieces. So for example, like your example of, hey, our data's not ready. I heard that garbage in, garbage out. Let's wait until we're ready, all sorts of things, right? And my guidance is, the technology is moving so fast that I believe that we need to learn as it grows and as it moves faster. And in the area of AI, if your data is not ready, there are other use cases that don't require your data. So for example, we all have competitors in the market. Do deep research on your competitors. Ask AI. Because our customers are asking AI about our businesses. So pretend you're a customer of your own company and ask in the same way that your customers would ask AI to evaluate the various competitors in the space, in the insurance space, right? And have it analyze and rate the competitors on various criteria that are most important to customers. Have it come up with recommendations based on a situation, and ask it in which situation might one be better than the other. Guess what? We're going to get an answer because AI forms an opinion about brands before human beings do. We didn't feed it any data, right? But it informed us on how it's actually helping customers and how we're being perceived in the market. So there are a lot of outside-in use cases that will help inform our decisions and will get us started in using AI without us having to feed it information.
Yeah, it's great advice, and just thinking that outside-in perspective is very helpful, especially if you're kind of tangled up in your own,
when you're belly button gazing, is what they call it.
Exactly. So, okay, so just to finish up, we always like to kind of end these conversations with a look towards the future, right? And so, just looking across, and with AI, I don't know what is the future 3 months from now, or 12 months from now, or 24 months from now, but just kind of looking across the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months, how do you see the role of sales and marketing evolving as AI becomes just more embedded in every part of the journey?
Yeah, and I could even extend it way beyond sales and marketing because I know your audience is a much varied audience, right? I do feel that AI literacy is foundational and it's no longer an option, it is mandatory. And the reason why I believe AI literacy is so important is regardless of how we feel about AI, or anything else, right? When we're literate, we can make better decisions for ourselves, our families, our businesses, our teams, and then ultimately society. When we're not literate, we risk being influenced by others who may not hold the same values as we do. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of this is I know there are a lot of fears about job loss and things like that. But I've done a little bit of research. 60% of the jobs that we have today did not exist in 1940.
Wow.
So, and that just comes to mind every time I think about job loss. Although we no longer have elevator operators and we no longer have stenographers, we now have software developers and social media managers and digital designers. So this whole notion around, there will be replacement. That is true, but there will also be new roles that come to be. And I think the biggest difference in our environment today is just the pace of the innovation and the advancement of innovation, right? So the bigger question in my mind is not about replacement. It is about how quickly can we upskill and reskill people, and how quickly can we create these new jobs for people. We are the most adaptable, creatures on this planet. So the very positive side of me believes that we will adapt again if we do this right.
That's great. Important. So, Lisa, this was just a terrific conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate being here.
That was an energizing and insightful conversation with Liza Adams, from rethinking go-to-market strategies to upskilling teams and accelerating AI adoption. Lisa gave us a roadmap that insurance leaders can apply today. Yeah, as we heard, AI isn't just about tools. It's about transforming how your sales and marketing teams think, work, and grow. If you want to stay competitive, now's the time to learn what's working in other industries. So thanks for listening to the JD Power AI and Insurance podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe and share this episode with your go-to-market team. I'm Michael Vermillion, and we'll see you next time.